All right, so hello everybody. This is the More Knowledge Show. This is like episode, I would say episode 22 or 21. No, it's like 22. Maybe it's 23. But yeah. It's it's definitely been a while since you've heard my voice. It's probably been since early January, and it's February 1st right now. So it's been a solid month since I've recorded a More Knowledge Show. The reason for that is, I guess you could say, a combination of school stuff, a lot of homework and all of that, and it's just been hard to carve out the time to really film a More Knowledge Show and talk about stuff, because it does require you to walk around and film, and sometimes the weather's bad and all that type of stuff. So all those factors have kind of kept me from recording. And I was supposed to film an episode last Sunday. I was really planning on doing it because it's been a while, so I had the time to film the episode. But right when I was about to start, I picked up my phone, I looked at the news, and then I saw that Kobe Bryant passed away. And when that happened, I was just like completely thrown off balance. Like, I was like barely able to walk, and the reason why I was thrown off balance, because it was just so surprising when it happened. Like, I thought I was losing my mind, or I traveled to another dimension. Like I lost my sense of reality. I couldn't really think. And yeah, it was just like so out of nowhere, because the very night before that, I was watching the Lakers game when LeBron James passed Kobe Bryant in scoring, and then I saw Kobe Bryant tweeted how he was congratulating LeBron and all that. Like, he was just there. I just saw him tweet that, and then literally like 12 hours later, you hear that he's dead. And then that just hits so fast, and it just made me like really question everything that's going on around me. And I usually question things around me a lot. That's kind of one of my personality traits. I do like to question things, but when something like that happens, it just takes it to another level. And so I ended up not recording. But to be honest, now that I look back, that may have not been the best thing I could have done on the day that Kobe Bryant died, because Kobe Bryant was all about working hard and doing all the extra stuff, even in the face of adverse circumstances. So the fact that I took a break on the day that he died was kind of disrespectful. So I want to apologize for that, because I shouldn't have took a break. I should have recorded anyway. And that also got me thinking about everything else. All these other reasons for why I can't record. I should be recording anyway. I should be making More Knowledge shows anyway, and continuing to make them improve each and every single time we record one. But anyway, another thing I just want to say about Kobe Bryant, because the main source of inspiration that I think that he brings was not really just NBA, or not really even just being a father, which is the two things that most people bring up. They talk about how great a father he was and how great a basketball player he was. I actually get most inspiration from his business side of things, because when he retired, his net worth was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. All right, he had endorsement money. Like, he could just walk into a room and people would pay him money. Like, he was a walking money machine. He had no trouble. He could have just sat around and done nothing for like years, and until he died, he could have just sat around, done nothing, just he had the opportunity to do what a lot of people always dream of doing, which is retire around the age of 40 and spend the rest of your life just traveling, relaxing, and doing not much of anything. But he chose to take on challenges that were not easy challenges. He did not just rely on his name to live off of. He did not just rely on his basketball accomplishments and use that just to, you know, live a easy life. He took on challenges. He started companies. He had like multiple companies. He had a venture capital company. He had a media company that wrote books and made movies. He had like something called Kobe Inc. He was writing stories, like we're talking about like fiction stories, like all this stuff is kind of out of the world type stuff. He won an Oscar. He was investing in a whole bunch of companies. He had a venture cap, like he was everywhere from Wall Street to Hollywood to writing children's books to winning Oscars to making movies. And he just came off of 20 years of doing nothing but playing basketball. And he didn't have to do any of these things. He didn't have to do any of these. Like a lot of athletes, when they retire, they just spend the rest of their lives still involved with that sport in some way. They usually don't venture far beyond what they've been doing as an athlete. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what he did was just go in a completely different direction. He went from being an athlete to an artist, to writing books, to making movies, like stuff like this you just wouldn't think an athlete would do, especially when you don't need to do it, when you don't need to do that, take on extremely hard tasks as a business person. He could have easily made much more money with a lot less work, doing a lot of other different things, but he chose the harder route, and he was very successful at it up until his death. And I can guarantee, if he didn't die at this young age, and he lived to be a very old person, he would have been remembered, as one of the greatest business people to ever exist. And of course, being an athlete would have definitely helped that, because you don't expect, athletes to come out of nowhere and just become an amazing business person. Really, you don't expect anyone to do that, because it's incredibly hard. But I think he would have been able he would have pulled it off. He already did pull it off, but he would have really took it to another level. He would have made more films. He would have made more stories. And he would probably have went into things that, we don't even know about. Like, who knows the type of things that he was coming up with. But he was that type of person. And I just wanted to talk about that because I think that is the type of mindset that we all need to have. That type of mindset can solve our world problems. I think there's too many people who think that the main purpose in life is to work. Like, you work, and then all that work is just to retire. And then when you retire, you just sit around and do nothing. Like, that is considered to be the dream, just to retire and do nothing. But I think that no matter where you are in your life, you always should be trying to create something new. You always should be taking on a new project, and something that actually provides value, not just makes money. And if more people would do that, we would be utilizing a lot of creativity that's just sitting on the sidelines, that's not being fully utilized. People just want to make it as easy as possible. If you want to, you can take, I guess, the easy route and then retire and then live a normal life. But with the complexity of our world, with the type of problems that we need to solve, the type of new problems that are coming up, problems that that are going to come up and we don't even know we can't even foresee. All of that stuff is going to require people like Kobe Bryant. People who aren't really just doing it about money. They aren't working just so they can retire and do nothing. They're doing it because they actually want to. They actually like and enjoy challenges, and they enjoy producing things that are valuable. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to say. I think that that mentality can save the world. And it is what the More Knowledge Association wants to continue to exemplify in everything that we do. So anyway, yeah, I just want to say that. But now we can get back to our regular scheduled programming. So besides the tragic death of Kobe Bryant, if you turn on your TV, chances are you're going to hear a lot about nearly everything. It's probably going to be about three things. It's either going to be Kobe Bryant's death, the Trump impeachment, or coronavirus. And I would say probably number one right now is coronavirus, because I'm pretty sure the last episode I made, everyone was talking about World War III in Iran, how America was about to go to war and all that type of stuff. Well, yeah, it's a few weeks later. It's a month later, in fact, and that's pretty much dead. Like, nobody's really talking about it. It's gonna pop up again. Let me just say that it's gonna pop up. It's gonna pop up again. Like, that's nearly a guarantee. We're gonna have another one of those events, in the Middle East, sometime this year, and it's going to cause, a lot of panic, a lot of fear. It's gonna happen, but I think what we've kind of seen is that all of these things kind of just die out, and then people forget about it. So I wouldn't really put everything into it. I wouldn't be so scared that, another event like what happened earlier in the year, that if it happens again, I wouldn't be so terrified about it. But this coronavirus, I guess, has more potential. This coronavirus has a lot more potential to really cause a lot more harm that's more longer lasting, and to have real significant impacts on the economy. And currently this virus is being compared to something. It was a SARS virus outbreak in China. It happened in like 2003, and a lot of people are comparing this virus to that virus, but I would say that this virus has a lot more potential for harm and pain, especially economic pain, because China's economy is a lot more connected now than it was in 2003. So you really have to think about that. So even if this virus isn't as bad as the past viruses in China, the effect is going to be much greater, to a level that we haven't seen before, out of a country like China. So what exactly is going to happen, of course you don't know, unless you have inside information. Chances are China's not telling us everything. I mean, historically, when has China given the world complete transparency into the things that take place inside their country? China is always going to manipulate the story in their favor. So chances are, whatever we're hearing out of China about what's going on with this virus, it's probably quite generous. Okay, it's probably quite generous. But I guess you can ask, is this the big thing that's going to turn everything downward? So we survived the trade war. We did not survive the trade war, but according to the eyes of the media and most people, we survived the trade war. We survived Brexit. We survived World War III. We survived, what else? What else did we survive? We survived, we survived a whole bunch of stuff, okay? And because of that, markets rallied. All right. But is this the thing that the markets and the economy cannot survive, and it will cause a global recession, and earnings will collapse, stocks will collapse, people will panic, risk assets will be sold everywhere? Is this that event? Here's the thing. We don't know. All right. Nobody really knows. If someone says that they know, they're probably someone that you don't want to listen to, because they're either insane or they're lying to you, and they know that they're lying to you. We don't know, but it's certainly possible. It's possible that there is going to be a big impact from this. But what's more important for us to look at is, even without the coronavirus, even if this thing dies away, are we in a good position? Is our situation good? Is our economy in a good place? Is politically, is the world in a good place? Is this a good business environment for growth, for prosperity, and for further improvements in our world? Are we in a good position for this? And the answer to that is definitely no. Okay, I mean, the GDP numbers came out for the last quarter, and what we're seeing now is not only is business investment contracting, consumer spending is not growing like it was before. All right, the economy last year was not amazing. Now, I guess you can say it's still very good, considering that we are in such a long expansion, but it's certainly not as good as people are projecting it to be. There's no doubt about that. Okay, and that is fundamental factors that have nothing to do with these exogenous events that are going on, which of course have an effect. But even without them, even without this coronavirus, or without a World War III breaking out, the problems are still there. And I think that what a lot of the expectation is that if this coronavirus dies out, everything will be fine. Everything will just get back to moving as usual. There is no real economic slowdown. There are no real fundamental problems. A lot of people believe that fundamentally everything is great, but it's these outside factors that are causing more stress than there really should be if they didn't exist. But I completely do not agree with that statement. Okay, I mean, if you look at it, income and wages are not rising very much to indicate that consumer spending is going to continue to grow at a high level. Okay, and consumer spending has been the main driver of our economy. And I think what people are starting to realize is that this consumer spending had nothing to do with, people were actually making a lot more money. It had to do with people were able to borrow more money. You saw the effects of what happened when the Federal Reserve tried to raise interest rates. And I think the general rule should be, if the Federal Reserve cannot raise interest rates without substantially slowing the economy or without causing a market crash, the underlying fundamentals are not strong. And right now, not only can the Fed not raise interest rates, they've had to lower them. And not only do they have to lower them, they're printing billions of dollars every month, and they're injecting it into the system. And even then, even with all of that, things are still slowing down. That is the current predicament that we're in. So even without this coronavirus, I just want to make it very clear. The problems, are inside of the system. They're fundamental problems that are causing these economic slowdowns. It's not just because we have these, random events. It's not just because we have, forest fires or bad weather. It's actually there. Okay, it's real. And also you also have to factor in the fact that there's always going to be these type of things. You're never going to have a time period where there aren't any virus outbreaks. There is no, random crazy events that causes some panic. But when things are truly strong, the economy can be resilient, even in the face of these events, because that's always going to be there. But in our case, obviously, we are not strong through these things. Well, okay, well, let's be fair. It's not, once again, like, there hasn't been any indication so far. It's too early for us to know if the coronavirus has, adversely affected the American economy. But considering all the fear, I think people know that it really can cause a lot of damage. And people know that because people know that the fundamentals are bad. But I think people are just confident that the truth will continue to conceal itself, and that this fantasy will live on for longer than it should. This fantasy of an incredibly strong economy, this fantasy of a perfect nirvana situation where everything is balanced, everything's at peace, and we can just invest money in anything, we can do anything, and everyone's going to be incredibly rich. That's kind of the mentality that's the reason why you saw such large stock gains last year. But I guess, there could be some psychological changes, because this, January as a whole, the markets were down. And that's usually a bad indicator, because there's kind of this belief that, if January is bad, the rest of the year is going to be bad. If January is good, then the rest of the year is going to be good. This year, January was down. So maybe that does flip a psychological switch in the minds of investors, and they kind of view things differently. And if that happens, not much has to change. All they have to do is just view things differently. If they view things differently and look at what is really going on, there isn't a strong argument to be overly optimistic. Okay, maybe you can make an argument to be slightly optimistic. You can certainly make an argument to be not optimistic at all. But the levels of optimism that we have been seeing with everyone going long the market, everyone's bullish, everyone's invested, that type of optimism, there is no good argument to really justify that. There isn't. Okay, if someone is on life support and dying, they're not in an optimistic situation. Okay, if someone is slowly dying, they're, just because they may not die for another few months, there's still no reason to be optimistic in that person. They're in a bad condition. That is what's going on with our economy. Yes, we may not enter a recession this year. It's possible that the expansion continues and we just grow more slowly. Okay, all that's possible. But things are still getting worse. The economy is still on life support, and they're not going to be able to remove all this life support. So yes, we may be able to sustain ourselves for a little while longer, but there's no reason to be jumping with joy or singing or dancing or any of that you see that's going on a lot around us. Well, so you guys have heard my opinion many times on the economy and the market. It's just, every episode I like to update it with the new events and how those events factor in. Of course, sometimes I'm like, this new thing is important. Sometimes I'm like, it's not important. In this case, I think that the coronavirus has potential to cause a lot of damage. But once again, I want to make it clear, even if this does die out, which is very possible, it doesn't change what's going on with our economy. And what goes on with the economy affects what goes on everywhere else. So, yeah. Anyway, besides the coronavirus, this weekend, I'm not too sure if you might be watching this on Monday. So that will be the day after the Super Bowl. But yeah, so the Super Bowl is coming up. This is the biggest event of the year in America, I would probably say. Yeah, it's the biggest sporting event probably in the world. Like the biggest single sporting event. Of course, you got like the Olympics, you got like the World Cup, but that's like a whole tournament. This is like one game. So the biggest single game is probably the Super Bowl. But as you probably all know, it's a lot more than just a football game. It's a big media extravaganza. It's a corporate extravaganza. Companies are all trying to sell you their products. It's usually very political. There's a lot of celebrities, a lot of people trying to make a lot of money. That's really what the Super Bowl is. I mean, yeah, it's a football game, but at its core is really just a bunch of people trying to make money. But I guess it's kind of like, what can the Super Bowl really tell you? Well, like, really what I'm trying to get at is, what does the Super Bowl signify about us as people, that we have something like the Super Bowl? And I think that the Super Bowl generally signifies everything good about our society. The fact that people can take time off to spend with something like the Super Bowl is, or just sports in general, is usually a great sign. Because, I mean, if you think about it, if people are struggling, if people can't get by, if a large part of the population can't get by, people aren't going to be caring about sports or all this other stuff. People are going to be worrying about surviving. And of course, a lot of people are still worrying about surviving. But compared now to years ago, you really think that something like the Super Bowl would really be as big as it is right now? I don't think so. I think that a lot of people wouldn't be able to enjoy the Super Bowl because they would be so worried about just living life. So people wouldn't have time to pay attention to all these athletes. People wouldn't have time to pay attention to all these companies, all these people that are trying to make money. And, the fact that we have so many people trying to make money means that there is money to make. And that I would consider to be a positive thing. But of course, I guess you can look at it from the other perspective, of how something like the Super Bowl, something that's supposed to be just a sporting event, something that's just a game, a football game, and the whole kind of the idea of sports is to remove all that other nonsense and then just for a few hours focus on sports. But the Super Bowl, it isn't just about sports. It brings in all of this other stuff with it. So could that mean that no matter where you go, there is no escape? Like, there is no escape from companies trying to sell you their products, from politicians trying to get votes, from people trying to make political statements, from celebrities trying to get attention, from people trying to make money. Like, there is no escape from that type of mindset, which is shown in the Super Bowl, which is promoted in the Super Bowl. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one side, you really see the level of prosperity that we have produced. Of course, it's not equally prosperous, but in general, it's prosperous. But you also see how, they're really, like, the forces of our world are just right in your face. All of the money making, all of the politics, all of the attention seeking, all of these things, you can't escape from them. And even in something like the Super Bowl, which is supposed to be just a football game, it's promoted to the highest degree possible. So, it's just kind of I think it's important to look at a lot of the big events that we celebrate, because I think what we celebrate and what we pay attention to, what a large amount of our society pays attention to, tells you a lot about that society. You know, in, I guess, ancient Rome, people had a big emphasis on watching gladiators who were like slaves fight to death. Okay, I guess that could tell you something about Roman society. And usually the people who were watching these fights were like the very rich people. So, you know, it's important to look at what trends are dying, what are rising, and I think that this can tell you a lot. So now, of course, if there ever was a time the Super Bowl wasn't this big event, I think that is a very dire warning, or a bad signal that things have drastically gotten worse. But as it seems, the Super Bowl still is the Super Bowl. It's in Miami this year, so of course, you know, Miami, there's a lot of nightclubs. It's a big tourist city, and I'm sure a lot of money is about to be made. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to say about that. In terms of the entire More Knowledge Association, we are continuing to try to figure out new things to do. Of course, the More Knowledge show in its current form, it's not very high quality. In fact, it's very low quality, and we know that this show in its current form is not going to accomplish very much. So of course, we're going to try to figure out ways to make this show better. We're going to try to figure out ways to make everything we do better and to add more things. But all that will take time. It's going to take work, and it's going to require us to at least be able to post once a week when it comes to the More Knowledge show. So I'll see y'all next week. Stay safe. Do not do anything crazy. Do not injure yourself or injure others. And yeah, have a great day.